She didn't come with bodyguards. No designer heels. Just a quiet presence and a reservation. But when the hotel clerk dismissed her like she didn't belong, he had no idea she owned the building he was standing in. And what happened next? It wasn't just a correction. It was a reckoning. The revolving doors whispered shut behind her as Veronica Blake stepped into the gleaming lobby of the Silver Crest Hotel. Crystal chandeliers dangled like frozen fireworks overhead, casting a soft shimmer across the polished marble floor. Every inch of the space was designed to intimidate. Pristine velvet chairs, sculpted topiaries, a gold-trimmed concierge desk stationed like a gate to another world. But Veronica didn't flinch. She walked with the calm precision of someone who had nothing to prove and everything to observe. Her heels made no sound. Her presence didn't beg for attention. No entourage. No rolling suitcase. Just a tailored charcoal blazer, matte black slacks, and a sleek leather folder tucked beneath one arm. Her silver curls were swept into a low twist, and a single sapphire stud glinted in each ear. She moved like someone who had done this before, because she had, 1,000 times. But this time was different. Trevor, the front desk manager, watched her from behind the concierge counter. Posture stiff, jaw tight, mid-30s cess, polished, pressed, and perpetually suspicious. He clocked her instantly, not by name, not by purpose, but by presence, and made up his mind before she even reached the desk. She paused briefly near a grand vase overflowing with white orchids. Her eyes scanned the lobby, calm, analytical, not looking for directions, just assessing the space. Trevor didn't like it. He stepped forward, adjusting his name tag like armor. "Excuse me," he said, lips thin, voice sharp. "Guests must check in before accessing the property." Veronica turned her head, slowly, as if hearing him through glass. "I'm aware." He didn't ask for her name, didn't ask if she had a reservation. His gaze swept her clothes, her skin, the lack of luggage. He straightened. "If you're here for someone," he added, "you'll need to wait outside the lobby. This is private property." Veronica blinked once. Nothing else moved. Her hands remained calmly folded, her tone even. "I'm not here to meet anyone. I have business here." Trevor's smile barely touched his face. "Well, unless that business includes a room key or a conference badge, I'll have to ask you to step out." He still hadn't asked her name, still hadn't touched the keyboard in front of him. She let the silence sit, let it breathe. Then she glanced at the monitor behind him, its glow reflecting faintly in her eyes. "Noted," she said quietly. Trevor assumed she was stalling, maybe bluffing, maybe hoping he'd back off. But Veronica Blake didn't stall. She observed. She measured. Because this wasn't just any hotel. It was her hotel. And the man dismissing her had just invited a storm through his front door. Veronica didn't move. Her hands remained gently clasped in front of her, her breath even. She'd seen this pattern before. Smiles that hid suspicion. Voices wrapped in politeness but sharpened like knives. She didn't respond with anger. She didn't raise her voice. She simply looked Trevor in the eye. "I'd like to speak with the manager," she said. Trevor gave a short laugh, the kind people use when they think they're being tested by someone beneath them. He leaned forward slightly, his hand resting on the counter like a challenge. "You're looking at him." His smile grew, thin and smug, stretching across a face that had already decided she didn't belong. "I'm the front desk manager here at Silver Crest," he added, his tone slick with artificial patience. "And again, unless you're checking in, or you're on the guest list, I'm going to have to ask you to step outside." She blinked once, slow and deliberate. No surprise registered in her expression, just clarity. He wasn't interested in solving a problem, only in maintaining control. Trevor didn't check the screen in front of him, didn't ask for her name. He just adjusted his tie, and shifted his weight like the conversation was over. "I see," Veronica said softly. It wasn't a concession. It was a statement, and she meant every syllable. Trevor gestured toward the wide glass doors behind her. "We have high-profile guests arriving," he added, voice dipping with faux diplomacy. "And we like to keep the lobby secure." The message was clear. She was the disruption, the problem to be removed. Behind the counter, the younger concierge, a woman barely in her 20s, fidgeted nervously, eyes darting between Trevor and Veronica.
"She said nothing."
But she saw everything. Veronica let the tension sit. She didn't argue, didn't explain. That wasn't her job. Not here. Not today. Instead she tilted her head, just slightly. You're certain you want to proceed this way? Trevor's smirk twitched. He didn't like her calm. He preferred discomfort. It was easier to dismiss. If you don't exit the property, he said, louder now, I'll be forced to involve security. And with that, he turned to the concierge, and nodded. Call Greg. The words echoed like a gavel. Veronica didn't flinch. She simply reached into her pocket, pulled out her phone, and typed a single message. Her thumbs moved with quiet purpose. No panic, no hesitation, just precision. Trevor crossed his arms, assuming he'd just won a small battle. But what he didn't realize was that Veronica Blake hadn't come to fight. She'd come to inspect, and the report had already begun. The message took 5 seconds to send. Veronica didn't type paragraphs, didn't scroll through contacts. She opened one thread flagged red at the top of her screen and sent a single line. Incident. Silver crest. Discrimination at check-in. Reviewing in person. Then she slipped the phone back into her blazer pocket, with the same ease she used to sign 7-figure deals. No one saw the ripple that message created. Not yet, but the board did. And their silence wouldn't last long. Across the lobby, Trevor stood tall, arms folded, chest puffed with imagined control. His voice hadn't risen, but it carried now, sharp and pointed like a blade wrapped in silk. Security's on the way, he said, just loud enough for surrounding guests to hear. We'll get this sorted. He didn't notice the glances, the shifting postures, the quiet pause from the bellhop who'd just pushed a cart of luggage to the elevator and stopped mid-step. He didn't see the woman in the lobby lounge slowly lower her coffee cup, suddenly alert. He was too busy performing authority to recognize the power already in motion. Veronica stood exactly where she had been, hands lightly clasped in front of her, gaze steady. Not a hint of emotion flickered across her face. She wasn't rattled. She wasn't reacting. She was watching, logging every move, every word. Trevor turned back toward her, adjusting his cuffs like a man preparing to deliver a final blow. I don't want to embarrass you, he said smoothly, but you're leaving me no choice. Veronica simply nodded once. Understood. The young concierge beside him shifted uneasily, her fingers hovering over the keyboard she hadn't once used to look up a name. She glanced at Veronica, then quickly away. She didn't know who this woman was, but she knew this felt wrong. Trevor didn't notice. He was too busy thinking he was containing a problem. But the real problem wasn't the woman in front of him. It was that the woman in front of him wasn't just a guest. She was the founder, the CEO, the reason the chandeliers sparkled above his head, and the floors gleamed beneath his shoes. And while he dismissed her presence as a threat to decorum, she was already 5 moves ahead, watching his every misstep become evidence. Behind the walls, her message hit inboxes in London, Tokyo, Manhattan. Corporate group chats lit up, calendars cleared, internal alerts sounded. Her presence was no longer a mystery, it was an emergency, and Trevor, still unaware, still in performance mode, still trying to manage the lobby like he held the reins. But power doesn't announce itself with shouting, sometimes it just presses send. The black SUV rolled up to the front entrance like it had somewhere more important to be. It didn't idle, it didn't hesitate. The back doors opened in perfect sync, and out stepped 2 people dressed like silence and authority had merged into human form. One in a dark navy suit, clipboard in hand, legal. The other in slate grey with a discreet badge clipped to her belt, HR. Neither paused to admire the marble floors or the chandelier glow. They didn't need directions. They didn't glance around for help. They moved like people who had been briefed mid-flight and arrived with purpose. Inside, the lobby seemed to exhale, soft conversations dimming into static. The receptionist stilled. The concierge straightened. Even the bellhop abandoned his luggage cart, watching the approach. Trevor, still standing behind the desk with arms folded like a monument to false confidence, didn't notice the shift at first. His attention remained locked on Veronica, who hadn't moved an inch. She simply turned her head slightly, as if acknowledging the change in barometric pressure. Then the voice came. "Excuse me," the woman in grey said crisply. Trevor turned mildly annoyed. "One moment, please. I'm handling. We're here for Miss Blake." The words sliced clean through the air. Trevor blinked. "I'm sorry, who?" The man in the navy suit didn't even blink. "Veronica Blake." A pause. The woman followed through. Your CEO. The silence that followed wasn't hollow. It was loaded. Trevor's mouth opened just slightly. His eyes darted from the woman beside him, to the phone in her pocket, to the calm in her posture. He shook his head, faintly, like trying to push back time. There must be some confusion, he muttered, straightening his name tag, like it might protect him now. She didn't give her name. She wasn't checked in. You never asked. The HR rep cut in coldly. You never even looked. A guest near the lounge gasped. Another one, near the elevators, slowly turned their phone camera toward the desk. No one stopped them. No one moved. Veronica still hadn't raised her voice. She hadn't uttered a single dramatic word. But the temperature in the room had shifted. Trevor's authority, so inflated moments ago, now sat in pieces at his feet. I didn't realize, he whispered. Veronica finally stepped forward, one foot, then the other, measured, elegant, final. You didn't want to realize, she said. Her voice wasn't angry. It didn't need to be. Because when the truth arrives wearing a tailored suit, and a name you never bothered to learn, it doesn't knock. It walks in through the front door. Trevor stood frozen, his hands suddenly unsure of where to rest. He glanced at Veronica like she might save him. Like maybe if he just said the right words, the moment would undo itself. But there was no script for this. No rehearsed apology. No corporate jargon strong enough to cover what had already been exposed. Veronica didn't rush. She stepped forward slowly, each heel click echoing like punctuation across the now silent lobby. Guests watched from behind screens. Staff held their breath. Even the chandelier's soft hum seemed to pause. You never asked my name, she said. Calm, even, clear. You saw my skin and decided who I was. Trevor opened his mouth then closed it. His throat worked around a sentence that never came. You didn't ask why I was here. You didn't check the system. You didn't offer help, she continued, her voice smooth and deliberate. You assumed. The HR rep beside her didn't speak, just tapped something quietly into a tablet. The man from legal pulled out a slim laptop and opened a folder marked security footage. Lobby 10:42 a.m. Trevor's gaze flicked between them, desperation surfacing in the cracks. I didn't mean there was no policy violation, he stammered, reaching for the only defense he could still touch. She didn't provide credentials. We have procedures. Veronica tilted her head slightly, like she was truly seeing him for the first time. No, she said gently, you have preferences. And you wear them like policy. Gasps weren't loud, but they were there. A sharp breath from the concierge. A whispered wow from a guest by the window. And just behind Trevor, the younger employee he'd ignored all morning, lowered her eyes, ashamed to have witnessed it unfold and said nothing. Veronica didn't need to shout. She didn't need to call names or make threats. Her truth was louder than any outburst could be. You treated me like a trespasser, she said. Not because I broke a rule, but because I didn't fit the image you assigned to this space. The man from legal stood up, closing his laptop with quiet finality. Footage confirms her account, he said to HR. Multiple violations of protocol. Immediate action warranted. Trevor turned toward them, eyes wide. Please, this was a misunderstanding. The woman from HR didn't blink. No, she said. It was a decision. Veronica didn't speak again. She didn't have to. The weight of her presence, and his choices had already spoken for her. Trevor's name tag was removed, his credentials collected, and the man who once guarded the front desk like a fortress, now walked toward the exit, shoulders slumped, past the very woman he'd tried to dismiss. Sometimes the mirror doesn't shout. It simply reflects. The lobby was quiet now, not empty, just hushed, like the building itself was processing what it had witnessed. Trevor was gone. The ripple he caused still lingered, but the storm had passed, and in its place stood Veronica Blake, unshaken, unapologetic, and not here to celebrate. She turned from the front desk, her gaze sweeping the room, not to demand attention, but to acknowledge it. Guests nodded subtly. Staff stood a little taller, but it was the young night clerk near the corner, soft-spoken, barely noticed, who caught her eye. She had been the only one who tried. When Trevor raised his voice, she had flinched. When Veronica was dismissed, she had taken a single step forward, small, hesitant, but enough to say, I see you. Veronica walked over, calm as ever. The girl straightened, unsure whether to speak or shrink. What's your name? Veronica asked, Jasmine, she said, almost whispering. Jasmine Hill. You saw what was happening, Veronica said. You didn't look away. Jasmine's eyes flickered. I wanted to say something. I didn't know if it was my place. Veronica nodded, eyes warm but steady. That's what makes it your place. She turned to her assistant, who had just entered with a tablet in hand. Start the paperwork. Effective immediately. Jasmine is the new assistant front desk supervisor. The hush turned to murmurs. Eyes widened. Jasmine blinked hard, trying to process what had just happened. Lead with empathy, Veronica said. Always. The rest can be taught. The applause was soft, but it was real, from staff, from guests. Even the security guard near the back gave a subtle approving nod. Later that week, Veronica sat beneath the studio lights of a national news broadcast, composed, precise, and dressed in the same understated style that had been overlooked just days earlier. The host leaned in. Miss Blake, the video has gone viral. Millions have watched. What do you want them to take from this? Veronica didn't blink. It's not about the moment, she said. It's about the pattern, about what happens when people are reduced to assumptions before they've even said a word. She continued, voice low but resolute. Effective immediately. All Silver Crest properties will implement quarterly anti-bias training. Anonymous complaint channels will be open to both staff and guests. And our new internal motto is simple. Respect isn't earned through assumption. It's expected through humanity. The studio went silent. The clip went viral, and in every Silver Crest lobby, a new sign appeared beside the front desk. Not a slogan, a promise. Because for Veronica, this wasn't revenge. It was a reset. If you've ever been made to feel invisible, in a space you belong to, share your story below. This is how change begins, with one voice refusing to disappear. Call to action. Have you ever been dismissed, misjudged, or made to feel invisible, in a place you had every right to be? Veronica Blake didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. Her presence, and the truth behind it, spoke louder than any confrontation ever could. What began as a quiet humiliation became a powerful reckoning felt across boardrooms, headlines, and every corner of the Silver Crest empire. Drop a comment below if you've experienced bias in a space meant to welcome you. Share this story to remind the world, respect isn't optional, it's the standard. Subscribe to Black Roots for more real, powerful stories, where justice rises, dignity speaks, and silence is never surrender.